Right, so I was having a look at this Pen-scope to see where I could add a proper on-off switch to make the thing actually useful, because with the 2-day switched off battery life it's pretty much useless. There is a little bit of space in the case where the beeper was, a little bit of space there, but I just struggled to find a switch that was small enough, and I wanted a slide switch so that it couldn't get accidentally knocked. And I was really struggling to find anything that was small enough but fairly robust. Then I noticed, I was just looking at the AC/DC input select switch, and in fact it's a 2-pole switch, but they're only using one half of it. So what I think I'm going to do is turn this into a power switch. So previously it was AC, input grounded DC. Now input ground isn't actually all that useful on something like this, so I was just going to make it sort of on and then off and on again in AC/DC mode. It means it will switch off and on again when you switch over, but you don't often switch between AC and DC. So I know if I was really wanting to do a total job of it, I could maybe put a MOSFET switch in there and a capacitor so that it would take maybe a second to turn off, so you could actually flick it between one position and the other without it turning off. But to be honest, I can't really be bothered, and if I find that it does become annoying then I can always add that later. So I'm just going to do a very simple mod and use this switch as the power switch and wire it in line with the battery. I was looking at somewhere convenient to break the power line. This is the power connector, and there was a track across here which I tried cutting, but it was still drawing a little bit of current, so there's probably some connection via one of the inner layers to these connections, so I'm going to have to try somewhere else, I think. Right, I found that although these outer 2 pins are linked on the top side, this one here is actually not connected to anything else internally, so just by cutting this track here, swapping the battery positive to the other side in the connector, this now gives an easy disconnect without having to do any major surgery. Right, so this is the mod at the power connector. It's a bit hard to see on here, but basically this track is cut, 2 wires are connected to the outer pins of the connector. These 2 wires are connected, there's a common is here, so one wire goes to there and then the other one goes to these outer 2 pins, which are switched on when the switch is at either outer position. And the battery plug, the positive, which was in here, is just moved across to here. These little Jst connectors, it's not too hard to move the connectors. Basically you just need to lift this pin up slightly with a knife, and then you can just pull the connector out that way. Just be careful not to break the plastic when you do it. And to disable the beeper, I've left it on just on the off chance they ever do a improved version of the firmware that doesn't have the stupid beep. I've just taken this capacitor out here. This is just next to the battery connector. C28, it's a 10 microfarad 0805 ceramic, so it now no longer beeps. One little detail, when you put the cover back together you need to make sure that this switch actuator is in the same position as the actual switch, so it actually lines up and operates the switch properly. Right, that's it back together now. So we've now got a proper on-off switch, so we just flick that position to AC or DC. It does switch off if you flick it, but it switches on fast enough. It does also remember the major settings. I don't know if it remembers every single setting, but certainly the main time-based settings it does remember after it's powered off, so I don't think on the rare occasion you want to flip between AC and DC. I doubt it's going to be too much of a hassle. Obviously one thing to remember is for charging you do need to have that switch on, but you can use it soft on-off switch and charge it that way, just stop it being on, but it'll still charge when the thing's switched on. It obviously just draws a little bit more power, but hopefully that little mod should make the thing. The only thing also you need to remember is if you do charge it like that, is to remember to turn it off on the switch, because otherwise you'll still have the same battery issue. So I think it's probably best to actually charge it in its switched on mode, purely just to remind yourself that it is on, because it's then more obvious when you take it off. You can see it's on, then you'll remember to switch off with a real on-off switch. And of course we now don't have those horrible nasty beepy things. Okay, it's still not brilliant, but it's hopefully a little bit more usable than it was before.